few weeks ago, I found a post on the marketplace of a man wanting to get rid of hardwood pallet runners in his garage. He had already taken out the nails years ago, but didn't use or want the wood anymore. I grabbed all 60 of them. Today I'm making a wooden stool, made entirely out of hardwood, with no visible screws. With hardwood and customers wanting custom versions of my marketplace offerings, I plan to make a lot more money for my time. I start by milling those pallet wood pieces to usable lumber, which is a quick process with the right tools. First, I cut my longer pieces of hardwood into lengths I'll need for my stool. This will make milling it on the joiner easier and make me lose less wood to square it off. To get the dimensions of all the parts, watch the video linked in the description. This tool is the exact same parts, but in hardwood instead of softwood. On the joiner, I start by getting one face flat, then one side square to that face. The rest of the milling will be done on the table saw and thickness planer. I transfer over to the table saw to get the other side parallel to the jointed side. Make sure to put the jointed sides on the table saw surface and on the fence. The last step in the milling process is the planer, for the fourth face. This will get it parallel to the first face I ran against the joiner. Now that my wood is all square on 4 faces, I need to resaw some of it into 3/4 inch thickness. Those will be for the top of the seat, but I'll need more for the side skirts also. I set my fence to half the thickness of the board, minus a 1/16 of an inch, half of the curve of the blade. I raise my blade to a little over half of the height of the wood. Flip it over so the same face goes against the fence, and run the other side. So split the wood into 2 book-matched boards. Make sure to only push the right part of the wood with your push stick. When they split, you want to keep pushing that one through to the end. This is not a necessary step, but I run the cut side through the planer to make it nicer and easier to sand. This will also make them both the same thickness if my fence was in dead center. I'm going to use the biscuit joiner to join the 4 pieces for the stool seat. I trace lines where I'll align the biscuit joiner. At the glue table, I add biscuits, glue, and clamp it in place. I make sure to clamp it vertically to the table also to make sure it stays flat. Back to the table saw. I rip another part of hardwood to 1.25 inches. I will then cut the 2 pieces so they're 1 1/4 inch tall too. Those will be for the legs. Same as earlier, I resaw some wood into 3/4 inch thick pieces, this time for the skirts. While at the planer, now that the stool top has dried, I plane it down to make sure there's no visible lines between the boards. 3 quick passes and it was ready. The legs are cut at a compound mitre angle, meaning that both the front and the back angles need to be set. Set both of them to 5 degrees. I start by trimming off one end, then push it towards the 15.5 inch stop block. Cut again, then repeat for the 3 other legs. If you did everything right, the legs should hold on the table like this, with their bottoms flat to the table. Set the back mitre angle back to 0 and keep the front one to 5. I'm cutting the skirts and they are in a pyramid shape 5 degrees on opposed sides. Measure both skirts at 6.5 inches and 11 inches and switch to the angle on the other side or flip the board over and cut again. To square the board, I start by attaching it with red tape to a piece of straight melamine. This gives the fence a straight edge to reference for the first cut. Flip the board over, remove the melamine and tape, and run against the fence on the newly cut side. This will give you 2 parallel cuts, which is good enough for what we want here. To trace the corners, I use a 1-liter paint can. I'll cut them off on the bandsaw right outside the line, then finish them on the disc sander. I went with the 1/4 inch round over for all the parts using my router. I used my vise for the small parts first. For the seat top I did the same bit, but I clamped the seat flat on the table. Now for sanding. I find hardwood projects way longer to sand, but in the end I save time by using finishes that are easier and faster to put on, versus paints that require lots of time and layers with a lot of my softwood projects. I sanded it to 140 grit here, and will finish to 220 by hand later once assembled before finishing. I find that gives me a better result and avoids swirl marks or missed spots. I'm marking out the inside edges where I will be using my biscuit joiner again. The skirts will be done at the same height as the legs from the top. Assembly is simple. Just make sure to angle the legs out and not in. Clamp everything to hold it in place. To remove the squeezed out glue from edges, use a straw. Cut it again if it gets wet or clogged. I'm attaching the top with dowels. First, I trace where I want it to land for easier marking with the dowel metal pin markers. Drill 4 holes over the legs the size of your dowel. Insert the markers and mark the seat top before drilling that too and connecting it to the base with dowels. I use clamps to hold it absolutely flat and deep into the dowels while it dries. I only leave it there for an hour or less. It doesn't need to be fully dry to unclamp and keep working. My final sanding is by hand at 220 grit. I find that gives me a nice texture without errors, ready to finish. I finished using MINWAX Polycrylic, a product that is water-based and similar to polyurethane. It's known for its extremely fast drying time and crystal clear finish. I want to keep this pink-ish wood color. The stool is all done. After around 24 hours it cured crystal clear with no wet look or yellowing whatsoever. I'm keeping this one, but I still posted it on the marketplace. I can tell buyers that I'm sold out, but take orders. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos and see you next time.